Hello, welcome to the show. Before we jump into today's conversation, I have one question for you. Have you signed up for my email list yet? If not, head to raisingwildhearts.com and sign up there. Every Wednesday, I'm sending a love note that I've affectionately dubbed Wise Wednesday. Sometimes I'm talking about what's going on in my life, like the time that my grandma on her deathbed asked me why I haven't dyed my gray hair yet. And sometimes I'm dropping truth bombs that make me squirm, like the time I admitted to judging parents who have their kids' faces in iPads. Either way, it's usually something real and raw that's going on behind the scenes of my life. So head over to raisingwildhearts.com to become an insider now.
Even if you don't want to lose weight, even if you don't want to look better, even if you don't think, if you're not going down that road, just have this fundamental understanding that fresh fruits, vegetables, high quality protein feeds our brain.
Yeah.
Our brains are the center of everything. So if you want to perform at a higher level, you want to be more productive, you want to have be more proficient, better cognition, better memory, process. If you just want to be smarter, eat better.
Hello and welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. That was Michelle Petty's. She is a TEDx speaker, a food story coach, and the award-winning author of Leaving Large, the stories of a food addict. Following a successful media career with companies like Radio 1 and Disney/ABC, Petty's personally battled emotional overeating, experiencing significant weight fluctuations totaling over 700 pounds lost and regained. This journey led her to create a unique perspective writing process designed to help people reframe the emotional narratives that drive their eating habits. This conversation is super awesome. If you eat food, this is a conversation for you. We dive into the food industry. We dive into habits around food, cultural perspectives around food, and so much more. Through Michelle's workshops, retreats, and speaking engagements, she now empowers individuals to transform their relationship with food and achieve long-term wellness and improved performance. So excited for you guys to hear the wisdom that Michelle is bringing today. Let's get into the interview.
Please note, the opinions and perspectives of guests on the Raising Wild Hearts podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Ryan Watkin or anyone associated with the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Michelle, welcome to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
I am so delighted to be here, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me.
You're so welcome. I'm so delighted that you're here as well. Once again, thank you to LinkedIn for connecting me with amazing humans like you. I just love it so flipping much. So yay for that. And the first place I want to kick off is that what I noticed, Michelle, is that this emphasis on food being happy, which you talk about in your TED Talk, which we will get into, this emphasis on food, especially for kids, being happy. I've got 3 kids, and let me tell you, Michelle, every shirt, every water bottle, every sticker pack, every toy, everything is like a happy donut or a cute cupcake or silly French fries or this or that. And it's like, what? Like, and you don't really notice it if you don't like think about it because it's kind of just in the water. We're kind of swimming in it, so we don't really notice. But I notice, and it drives me bonkers, Michelle. So let's kick off there in how culture presents food to kids, but also to us as humans.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to just shift it for just a second.
All right.
And say, yeah, it is part of the culture, but it's not the culture that is making that presentation. It is the manufacturers of the processed food. It is the manufacturers of the snack food. It is the manufacturers of the junk food. It is the sellers that are making this connection between this stuff, and I don't even want to call it food, this stuff that they are selling to an emotion that drives us. They are doing it to sell more of that stuff to us. at a higher price at the cost of our health. So it's not the culture, it is the marketers, it is the advertisers. And I say that having spent 40 years in advertising myself. I get it. But it is they know more about what drives us to buy things and want things and build desire for those things than we know ourselves. So you use that word happy. They know the word happy. Everybody wants to be happy. So let's just I walk every day. And if I didn't know what I know about what I know, oh man, But anyway, so I passed by this not spaghetti restaurant, Italian restaurant. This is spaghetti
Yep.
restaurant.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I passed by because I'm ahead of myself. In my mind, I'm already further down in the story. But I passed by this Italian restaurant every day. And I'm walking and I kind of look at the signs in the storefronts, and they have a sign in their storefront that says, "Don't be upsetty, eat some spaghetti." It's cute.
Ooh,
It's cute. It's catchy.
cute. It's cute.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
It's all that.
Yeah.
It's cute, catchy, and dangerous. Because you see that over and over again. You hear it over and over again. The same thing with the advertising messages, the same thing with the marketing. We start to believe that is true. We start to believe that eating a certain thing will make us happy. We start to believe that drinking a certain thing will make us sophisticated, will make us these things because the association is so strong. And they spend billions of dollars trying to make the story that they create for us real for us.
And it is real. It is real. Like for you, it was real.
Yes.
I've been in phases in my life. It was real.
Yes.
And I think we are talking about food here for sure. I also think like how you do one thing is how you do everything,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
There's a lot of that.
Yes.
So everybody here right now with us can relate to this on some level,
Yes.
whether it's the Netflix, the phone, the food, the alcohol, whatever that thing is, And so let's talk about, that story that we have ingrained in us, that there's some sort of happy magic pill, magic fountain that's outside of us, Michelle.
So, I got this is so funny to me because I grew up in the South. And I grew up with grandparents. I grew up with grandparents in the segregated South that were born in the 1900s, the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And so they had to adopt certain behavior just in order to survive. And so everything that they taught me was about me being able to survive this world that I grew up in. And I'm giving you this setup because in my household there were three emotions that were allowed: happy, happier, and happiest.
Yes.
You can be any three of those that you want.
Yes.
Pick one.
Totally.
Happy, happier, and happiest. Any of them.
Yep.
So there were no tantrums, there was no crying, you might for a little bit, but you need to get yourself together. Don't be coming in here with all that foolishness. That.
Yeah.
And so I understand where that came from in terms of protection, right? In terms of protection, what you need to do in order to manage. But also with that came this price of being separated from myself for so long and not understanding how to honor emotions and understanding the value of emotions. So that's my story. That's my setup. But I think all of us have some sort of similar story of how we learn or how we are taught that, oh, don't cry. Why don't cry, right? That teaches us not to honor emotions, not to understand how to manage them, not to realize that they are just tools, that emotions are data. They're not a bad thing. They're not good. They're not bad. right? And so when we live in this world that teaches us or doesn't teach us how to navigate emotions, then that makes us prey to the marketers who understand the power of emotions to use them against us, to have us really function and behave in ways that are counter to our own self-interest. Because we don't have the emotional intelligence, we don't have the emotional skill, and then we end up, in my case, and in the case of so many people, of the 75% of people that admit to being emotional eaters, right? The 75% of people say that they are. The other 25% are, but they just don't know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the real problem is really not the food, Ryan. The problem is that we don't have the skill. We aren't taught the skills to recognize emotions and then navigate them and then honor them and use them in a way that supports our health and how we want to show up in this world. That's it for me.
Totally. And I have to say, that just pisses me right off that these companies are doing that. And so if you're listening along and you're getting a little aggravated, I am with you. And I think that, this is what we talk about here. Like, this is where change starts in our own minds and hearts, with our own emotional intelligence, in our house, in our pantry, in the things and the way we choose to live in our house.
Yes.
So if you're angry and if you're aggravated, start at home, y'all, because that's what I will be doing. And that's what I am doing. You said a word, protection. And I find that this extra layer of weight or fat or this kind of shell that some of us carry around us, some of us more than others, right, in certain seasons, is kind of symbolic for protection. And you name these stats in your TEDx talk about Black women, and I forget what the stat is, but you can tell us, being more obese than others. And then also how much obesity is rising. And by, I think it was this year, or maybe it was 2035.
2035.
Yeah, 2035. 50%, or was it over 50%?
Over 50%.
Of all Americans will be obese. Half. That's wild, Michelle. So let's unpack why this protection, why it feels safe to eat. We hinted at it with the emotional stuff, but why else?
Okay. So safety isn't the only thing, right? So in my TED Talk, I talk about how food is at the center of everything, right? Everything is at the center of culture. It's at the center of education, at religion, at social gatherings. We use it for entertainment. We use it to express emotion. We use it to separate us from emotion. We use it for everything other than for what it really is, which is nutrition and nourishment, right? When we're happy, when we're sad, when we're celebrating, for entertainment, for pleasure, for if I'm bored, if I'm tired, if I'm lonely, frustrated, it's so the path forward is our collective consciousness about how we are misusing it.
Yeah.
And also not to take on blame for it. Responsibility, yes, blame. Because so much of this stuff, what I realized is even for my own self, it was just, I was unconsciously eating too much of the wrong stuff for the wrong reasons. So the first thing we have to do is just get conscious. We just have to raise our collective consciousness, this collective awareness of why we eat what we eat. Why? And what? If we get the consciousness right, if we get the what right, if we get the reasons right, then we can work on the amount of the thing, right? But the way that things are right now, all the focus is primarily on the what and the how much.
Hey, it's me, Ryan. So, something I do every single day to invest in my growth, besides connecting with the humans on this podcast, obviously, is reading. Reading is where it all started for me. I was 5 when I became obsessed with books, writing them, reading them, collecting them. I love how I can get inspired with new ideas and stories and ways to grow. That's why I ask all my guests what they're reading. And finally, you can check out all the book recommendations from the experts and authors on the show in one place at raisingwildhearts.com/books. There are some life changers in there like You Are the Placebo, and a few hidden gems like Sacred Motherhood and Living, Loving, and Learning. So if you want to get your hands on your next great read, check out the full list by heading to raisingwildhearts.com/books. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah. The what and the how much. And the what and the how much is behavior. It's action. And the thing that drives behavior in action is thought, belief, and feeling. Mm-hmm. So if we make a shift and go to our consciousness and go to why, then that means we are now addressing thought, belief, and feeling. And when we get that in alignment, then the action and the behavior will follow. But we have an industry, a weight loss industry, a snack food process, fast food, junk food, pharmaceutical, medical industry, all them that keep us in behavior and not addressing what the real problem is. And
Correct.
The real problem is thought, feeling, and belief. Because I just said 75% of people admit to emotional overeating. Yeah. And what that tells us, we need to address that. We need to address that just for even if we don't even deal with the 25 that don't admit it or don't know it. If we just leave them over there and leave them in timeout, right? And just address the 75 that are willing, right? Yeah. Then we are dealing with emotion. Let's do it. It is the deep work. It is the transformative work of changing your, not even a lifestyle, not even a mindset, but belief system, our fundamental belief of what the purpose of food is, which is counter to what this marketing and promotional culture tells us that it is. So we have to step to our own drummer. I mean, you know what I mean? Beat. Yep. Step to our own beat. But we can do it. And you just said it. We can do it one person at a time. I was, a while back, I was at it's things like this. A while back, I was at a business lunch. Right. It was in the afternoon, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock. About 6 of us at the table. We went to a Mexican restaurant. The server came, gave the menu, passed it around. And one guy at the table took the menu and he said, "Oh, you know what? I don't want anything to eat. I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat with my family tonight. My wife is a good cook." Mm. I mean, he said that like it was nothing. Wow. And I have shared that story with some people that I coach, and they were like, "Oh my God, he said that? What bravery, what this, what that." I was like, it wasn't brave for him. It was just who he was. Yeah. It was just his truth that it didn't mean anything. He didn't care what everybody else at that table was doing. Yep. He understood, right? He understood what sharing that meal meant. He was going to get the physical nourishment, but he was also going to get the communal nourishment, the community, all that stuff that comes from being with family. And it was more important than what was happening at that business lunch at that table. We were strangers. Yeah. He didn't know us. No.
He's like, "I'll take a rain check. I'll be here. Let's hang out, but I'm going to go eat at home. My wife's a good cook." Good for him.
I'm good. Wait.
And so many of us would sit there, eat the meal, and then go home and eat the other meal.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the emotional eating that no one talks about.
Yeah.
Our emotions around eating show up in so many other places other than boredom, loneliness, and the stress, and the ones that are always here. I'll give you another example. I'll give you an example of how a couple of them just form into one. Again, I told you I walk every day. And I live in Annapolis, Maryland. I live in Annapolis, Maryland, which is a city that is predominantly white. And I say that for the context of this story because I grew up in the segregated South in the 60s. And so we had two communities. We had the Black community, we had the white community, we had the haves and the have-nots, and that's kind of how it was. And so the goal for my parents and the friends of my parents, but the parents of my friends, was for us to, to move out of Marshall, get educated, and go experience the good life and be able to do the things that the white people do. I mean, that was kind of like the things that the people on TV do. That was the goal. All right. So I walk every day, right? And every day I walk by this bakery. It is only open on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And every day I pass by this bakery and the line is wrapped around the block with white people standing in line to go to this bakery, right? And a little coffee shop with it. And I walk by there every day. I see, and I'm like, man, I wonder what do they do? Why are all these people standing in line at this bakery? So I'm walking back and forth. To see it. It doesn't mean anything to me now, right? That bakery, the line or anything. But when I walk by that, I think about who I used to be.
Mm.
And I think about the fact that in the old days, I'm in Annapolis, Maryland. I see all my neighbors at this coffee shop. They're wrapped around the block. They must know something that I don't know. They must be experiencing some sort of goodness, some sort of fabulousness, some sort of secret stuff that they have at this coffee shop that I need to know about. I'd be right in that line. I'd be right in that line, availing myself, right, to all that I feel like I'm entitled to, that I've worked for, that's available to me, right? I'm good enough for all of that. Yeah. And so one day when they were closed, I just kind of, it was like toward the end of the day and the lines had dissipated, and I walked by and I looked. And I saw the stuff. They had some croissants, they had some muffins, they had some cookies. It looked like any other bakery. And I'm like, I wonder what it is that they do to this stuff that makes people stand in line and they can only be open for 3 days. And I thought about it, and I said, they probably just put more sugar in it.
Totally.
They probably just put more sugar in it, and it is more addictive, and then it's a habit, and then it's all that.
Totally.
But the emotions wrapped up in just that one little scenario, and then you amplify that. And so, first of all, here we're talking about eating out of curiosity, right? But nobody ever talks about that. Oh, I wonder what that tastes like. I wonder what's that you got? I should have gotten that right there. Yours looks better than mine. Now we're eating out a little bit. There's some jealousy going on. There's some envy going on. Yours,
some FOMO.
Some FOMO, right?
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
What am I missing out on?
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
But no one talks about that. How just this notion of missing out on things in the world, how it applies to food, and we use it in food as well, and how that impacts us. Oh, they have some of that. I think right.
Yep.
Okay.
That's so interesting. I was talking to a good family friend, just a dear woman, the other day, and she's from Brazil. And she said, in Brazil, first of all, they don't have too much obesity, and they also don't have too much like mental illness. And they also have this culture where they revere children. And so she was explaining me some of these differences. And she also said that, kind of like we have a McDonald's or Starbucks on every corner, they have a gym on every corner. And so it's very common there from her perspective that people there are health conscious and that they exercise and they take really good care of their health. And so that is so interesting. It's like this group think type mentality of like, oh, Mr. Jones and Sally Sue are up at the bakery. Let's go. Let's go get our coffee. Let's see who's who. Let's get our croissant. And it's kind of this like group think idea,
Yes.
It's so interesting.
And so, I want to talk about what you just said about the reverence for children.
Yeah.
And why we just really need need to pull the layers back on this food thing even more.
Yeah.
Because what we don't get a lot of focus on is how much what we eat impacts our cognition. So
Yep.
I'm not, I'm not trying to, even if you're not talking about, even if you don't want to lose weight, even if you don't want to look better, even if you don't think, if you're not going down that road, just have this fundamental understanding that fresh fruits, vegetables, high quality protein feeds our brain. Our
Yep.
brains are the center of everything. So if you want to perform at a higher level, you want to be more productive, you want to have, be more proficient, better cognition, better memory process. If you just want to be smarter, eat better, because the processed food, the snack food, the preservatives, the salt, the sugar, that all the stuff that's in there that we don't know anything about, that is harming our brains, not just our bodies.
Yep.
And we'll never get there. I mean, it impacts how we process our emotions, our ability to do that, our processing of information. It is the food.
Yeah. Yeah, if you see like a toddler going through a sugar crash and like think about it. We get sugar crashes as adults. When we eat something that doesn't feel good, we know it. And for so many years, like I described this on another episode too, I felt like my brain was hungry. And so and it was like this like need for whether it was like the dopamine or like the quick feeling of like a little bit of like satiation, like it was like my brain, not my stomach. And when I started like asking myself, like, is my tummy hungry? Just like we would with a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old. Is your tummy hungry? Okay. If your tummy's hungry, let's get you some food, right? And I think that reverence for children is such a good thing to double click on too, like you said, because if we had more reverence for children, what would our culture look like?
Yeah.
What would our school lunch look like?
Yes.
What would the playground up the street look like?
Yes.
What would be different if we had this, reverence for children? And I don't mean children running amok. I don't mean children taking the reins. I don't mean children being the boss, right? We are the leaders. We are the adults. But I do mean having this mutual respect for these humans. It's not like do as I say, not as I do. It's watch me nourish my body. Watch me make good choices. Watch me be imperfect, sure. And then you have the permission to do the same.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But Ryan, I also think that, and this isn't even a but, it's just a continuation. What I think is, I think that people don't know. I think people don't understand. I think people fundamentally, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was 60 years old. I'm like, I was a grown ass woman, past menopause.
Yeah.
Before I looked up the definition of food and understood it for the first time in my life, I was 60 years old. The way that I made my decisions about what I ate had everything to do by what I said earlier: appearance, taste, smell, and pleasure. That's how I made my decision. It wasn't based on nutrition. I mean, nutrition was just kind of this abstract concept, not this understanding that what I eat is either going to heal me or hurt me. What I eat is going to cure me or kill me. That this is about saving my life, not wearing a size 4 or a size 6 or a size 10 or a size 14, what I call a black woman's 10. It's not any it's not any of that. It's about my life.
Yeah.
The food is life. And if I want an authentic real life, then I need to eat authentic real food, not stuff that's made in a lab.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I just say, it brought tears to my eyes when you said you were 60 years old when you made a change for yourself, when you reinvented yourself from the ground up. Can we just put a pin in that, people? Because that, Michelle, is a big fucking deal. That's a big deal. Many of us, I'm 42, many of us here are in kind of that age range, somewhere between, 30s and 60s. And for you to show us, look at what I did. at 60 years old, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And Ryan, I'm glad you stopped to say put a pin in it, because I want everybody to know that it is my age or any age that you are, that your best years can be ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
They absolutely can. But we have to reclaim our minds. We have to reclaim our thinkings. We have to understand that we have everything that we need inside of us. We do. We do. We just don't know it. But we have to uncover it. We have to move. We have to tap into the tools to move all this stuff out of the way. Right?
Yeah.
It's possible for us to live happy, right? Thriving, fulfilled lives, just being connected to ourselves.
Yeah.
Being connected to ourselves is possible. It is absolutely possible.
Yeah. Will you tell us about Nancy McLaren, that angel, her?
Oh my gosh. All right.
Love teachers. Just
You
love
gotta,
them.
yes, 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 yes. So Nancy McLaren was my high school English teacher. And she taught me English in the 11th and the 12th grade. And man, she was a force of nature. We were all afraid of her. And I told her that. I told her that a couple of years ago. And you know
Yeah.
what? I can call her Nancy now. I can call her by her first name.
Yep. Yep. You're finally peers now.
We're
Right.
finally peers.
Yes.
But anyway, I told her, I said, I was afraid of you. And she says, I've heard that before.
I bet she has. I bet she has.
But anyway, so the first day in her class in the 11th grade, she said something to me that really, it just changed my life. And but it didn't change my life until later, not till I was 60.
That's how it goes.
It didn't kick in until I was 60.
Yeah,
But
it takes some time.
but she was a high school English teacher. We walked in and she said, in order to write clearly, you must think clearly. It is my job to teach you to think clearly. And she just laid it down, right? She
Yep.
laid it down.
Yep.
And so when I started to write my book, Leaving Large, The Stories of a Food Addict, which really chronicled my 40-year battle with food addiction, because that's what it was, food addiction and obesity. And I started to write these stories, and I wrote these stories from a space of clarity, of understanding, starting to understand what food meant, how emotions were wrapped up in these different situations. And I said, oh my God, I have some clarity. I have some understanding that I didn't have before. And so I thought about her. She just kind of popped up in my consciousness. And so I started looking for her. I started going online, and she had subsequently gotten divorced, gotten married, moved from Texas, moved to Arizona. She had a brand new last name, but I found her, right? I found her.
Wow.
And I sent her an email. So really, the last time I saw her was 1976. So I'm sending her an email in 2020, right? 2020, and I'm like, she probably didn't even remember me. So I sent her an email and just kind of tell her, I recount the story, and she is so happy to hear from me. She is so happy to hear from me, and she's like, just I just say just happy. And so we start communicating, right? So I start sending her stories, and she's like, "Oh, and let me know when your book comes out and I'll write about it, and let me know your stories." And so we stayed connected. And after my book came out, um it'd been out about a year, and we were talking, and I said, maybe, why don't we get together? Either maybe she said that or I said it. I think I said it. And she said, oh, she lives in Sedona, Arizona. She said, oh, I would love it if you would come to Sedona. Oh, all right. So we'll make a plan to come. And so I made a plan to come, and then she got COVID. Right. So it was like the beginning of the year. And then her husband died. And so the trip didn't happen until like some months later. And she was so disappointed that it didn't happen. I was just like, Nancy, this doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It's just mean that it's going to happen a little later. All right. And so I will be there. And so last year before last, I'd never been to Sedona. Went to Sedona. She's this like wonderful, wonderful, wonderful space. I spent the weekend with her, right? And
Wow.
so she maybe about a month or so, 2 months before I was headed out there, she called me and she said, when you come, are you bringing any of your books? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, of course I'll bring some books. And she said, well, would you mind if I had like like a book club for you while you were here? I'm like, oh, sure. Happy to do it. All right. So we decided we were going to do that. And so, as we were getting close to the date, I called her and I said, so I'm just trying to get a sense of how many books should I bring for this little book club event? And she said, well, 30 people have RSVP.
The little book club. Nancy McLaren, you firecracker, you.
And so I took the books. It was a wonderful turnout. And it actually gave me like a model for doing book parties, which I didn't have before.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely, wonderful time. We went to the mountains. We sat and we chatted and we talked about writing, and she told me her story and I told her my story, and we talked about poetry. And then fast forward a couple of months, I was invited to speak to a nursing class at Howard University about grief. And she had written a book on grief as a result of her husband passing. So I reached out to her and I asked her if she would want to be on the program with me. And so what happened was I interviewed her and we discussed grief and trauma for this nursing class. And it's just been lovely. It's been just lovely and delightful.
Oh, what a beautiful story about human connection. Like, you just like took it all the way. You're like, no, I'm not going to reconnect with her. I'm going to go stay with her for a weekend and she will throw me a book party. Like, it's just like such a testament to like connecting with our people, like in real life, you know? Oh,
Yes.
it's so cool. It's so
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
Tell us about writing and how writing helped you heal, how writing helps others heal.
Yeah. So, I can tell you, Ryan, that writing did more than help me heal. Writing saved my life. It saved my life. And I don't say that lightly, right? I don't say that lightly because in this journey, this journey of losing and gaining that 700 pounds, this last time that I went to the doctor, I felt like it was going to be my last time because I could no longer stay on that hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to just kind of frame the writing situation for you a little bit. So when I went to the doctor and she said, look, follow this plan. I want you to take these shots, eat this, you will not be hungry and you will lose weight. I knew I would do that. I didn't have any reservation or hesitation that I would be able to do it. I'd been doing it for 40 years. I knew how to lose weight. I just didn't know how to keep it off. I just didn't understand food. I didn't understand eating. I didn't understand hunger. I didn't understand it. So she said, follow this. I'm like, okay, I'll follow it. But the thing that I did when I was in the office and I took that plan, I did something I had never done during this entire journey. Is I prayed for understanding. I prayed to know what it was that I was missing. And then I just left it. And so I would go in and the doctor would say, oh, you're doing well. You're doing this. I'm like, okay, right. Just, give me my shot and I'm going to be out of here. And as I would go in, I would talk to her, right? You can see, I would talk to her then she started having me talk to her other patients, right? right? Would you talk to this person? Would you talk to, of course. And she would say to me, you should write a book. You should write a cookbook. But when you write this cookbook, you should include your stories because your stories have been the thing that have made the difference for you. I'm like, I'm not writing. I'm not doing that. Just, give me my prescription. Let me get out of here. Right. And that went on and on. And then I finally got to about the same size that I am now. What I felt was my ideal weight and size. And I, I feel like I had figured it out. And then COVID hit. And I heard the chatter, I heard the noise, I heard other people's stories, I heard other people's situations. Oh, I'm so stressed. I don't know what's happening. This is horrible. All I'm doing is eating. I'm not doing. I'm gaining weight. And in as much as I thought where I was real, it was authentic, and I had figured it out, I hadn't been tested. My situation had not been tested, and so. The doctor's words were in my head, you should write, you should write, you should write. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll try it. And so now I'll write this cookbook, and I'll write a cookbook with stories. And then everything that I'd ever heard about writing said, write from a place of authenticity, write, be real, all that. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do a 90-day diary. Right. So I sat down to write this 90-day diary cookbook story thing. And nothing happened, right? Just like nothing. And I'm like, nothing's happening. And so I went to the University of YouTube. And when I went to University of YouTube, they said, pick a thing, pick one thing. So that's the problem. I'm trying to do 3 things, right?
Yeah.
So I think about the cookbook. Well, there are dietitians, nutritionists, chefs, people that have been to culinary school. Why would anybody read my cookbook? They wouldn't. So push that out of the way. Then I looked at that 90-day diary. Hell, that bored me to tears. I'm like, nobody wants to read this.
Right.
Nobody wants
like,
to
wow, my life is actually pretty boring. You're right. Yeah.
And what was left was the stories.
Yeah.
And when I started focusing on the stories, they started to bubble up. They started to bubble up, and they would not stop. Right. Like my book has 22 stories in it. There's another 22 that's not even in the book. Right?
Wow. You got to write another book now.
I had to add it.
Right?
But
yeah.
I'm saying all this to say is that the only thing that has been different in my process this time around compared to all the other times was that I wrote, is the writing. Is that,
wow.
and what I did to write this book, and I've been doing the research, it's deeper than journaling. I mean, they tell you, you need to keep a food log, you need to do that, right? And journal is what happened, right? Here's what I ate. The journaling, here's what happened. But when you do what I call prescriptive writing, which is what I now teach, it is writing for healing. It is writing for that. It's going deeper than journaling. It's the why of the why. It's the who. It's the when. It's the how. It's the why. It's back to the why. It's back to the who. It's back to the when. It's to the where. You keep going back to those things over and over again, and pulling back the layers and making the connections and waiting. And waiting and writing through everything that you feel, right?
Yeah.
That is the thing that was different this time. That is the thing that saved my life, because it was coming, right? The diabetes was coming, the stroke was coming, the high blood pressure was coming. I mean, I had my inability to really process emotions in a real way had already happened and cut me. And so there was a piece of me that was already dead emotionally because I wasn't connected to myself or other people.
Yeah.
So let that settle for a while. I mean, I remember there's a chapter in my book called Words with Friends. And after I wrote my book, I went out to lunch with one of the friends that I mentioned in the book. And she read it and she bought it and she bought a couple for herself and some other friends. So we're talking and she said, Michelle, I read that chapter, Words with Friends, and when I read it, I cried. And I said, why? And here's what happened. When we first met, we worked together. She invited me out to lunch. And subsequently, we had another conversation. She said, Michelle, when I invited you out to lunch, you never looked up from your plate. And I'm like, what do you mean I never looked up from my plate? Yes, I did. She said, no, you didn't. I'm like, yes, I did. She said, no, you didn't. I'm like, how could I not? She said, you didn't. Wow. And as I let the truth of that settle over me, what I knew is if I had done it to her, I had done it to others. And then it started to hit me of what I missed because I was into the food and not to the people.
Wow.
That.
Yeah. So powerful. So for everybody out there, I know I will be reflecting on what are we missing when we are so ingrained, engrossed in these habits that aren't serving us, that aren't pulling us towards the ones we love. They're actually pulling us away.
Yes.
We can all become a little bit more aware. Even the aware people, like I consider myself a pretty conscious, a pretty aware person. I still, I still can get those blinders on. I still have blind spots. And it's important to pay attention and to love and to walk in love and to be in love. And it takes, correction every minute of the day sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Here I am. I'm back. And so, that's a good thing for us to strive to be.
Yes.
I don't like the word strive, but, to be, just to be. Mm-hmm. Where can we get your book and find you and follow you and just learn about the wonderful work you're doing in the world?
Yes. All right. So my book is Leaving Large: The Stories of a Food Addict. That's the name of the book. And if you just do leavinglarge.com, go to leavinglarge.com, you can get the book directly from me. That's always better because I can sign it and send it directly to you. It's leavinglarge.com. And when you do that, that also puts you on my mailing list. And I send out an email newsletter on Friday and just other tips about the mindset shifts that we need to make so we can stay protected. That's how to get the book. To follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at I Am Brand New Now, because this is all about thinking in a brand new way. When you think in a brand new way, then you can start to live in a brand new way. This is an excavation, right? So it's I Am Brand New Now. Or if you just want to reach out to me directly, Michelle at michellepettis.com. I answer all emails. If you're interested in having me come in and do a workshop, I'm available to do workshops around emotional eating, stress eating, yo-yo dieting, handling cravings. Not those things, but the thoughts that the mindset shifts that we need to make in order to claim power over those things, which is a whole different way of approaching it.
Yeah. The work you're doing is just so important. Thank you so much. I am so glad we connected. I am going to ask you the 3 rapid fire questions I ask everybody at the end of the interview. And the first one is, what's bringing you joy today?
Awareness and consciousness brings me joy every day. Yeah. Because I remember when I didn't have it. I remember when I didn't have it. So awareness and consciousness. That's it, and it's inside, right? To know that the joy is something that is abiding. It lives within us, and the truth. I know you didn't ask this, but I just have to say this part is that here's what happens: is that if you think food is joy, if you believe food is joy, and the truth is that joy is abiding and it's always in you, then that means in order to experience joy, you must always be eating.
Yeah.
And that's the disconnect. That's the thing we have to learn. Is that we are joy.
We are joy.
We are joy.
Yes. What, if anything, are you reading right now? What's on your bookshelf?
Oh, The Art of Slow Writing. I just picked it up. I just picked it up, and I'm so ready to dive into it, because it is all about writing as healing. And that's the space that I live in right now, is that we can, when we put it on paper and we get it out of our minds, there is something that happens when we have the pen in our hand or the pencil in our hand, and it goes from our hand up our arm to our brain and back down our brain to our hand to the paper, to the pen and to the paper. There is something magical in that act.
Yeah, it's so true. And then the last question I have for you is, who or what has taught you the most?
Who or what has you know what? My grandmother. My you know, I think I think every day I live, something she said pops in my head, and I think, oh Jesus, why did I pay attention to that? Because you're so right about that, right?
Grandma.
Grandma, yes, yeah,
Ah,
just a a quiet, brilliant, beautiful, revolutionary woman who was ahead of her time. And I will I'll tell you a quick story. Just one little quick story.
yeah.
And it's a story. It's actually a story about joy. It's a story about celebration. And it's a story that I use when I'm coaching people, because this is part of how I coach. Here's part of how I inspire transformation. Healing through reading, writing, and storytelling. It takes all of those things. So my grandmother taught me to pick up pennies. I pick up pennies today. I walk in the parking lot right now. I see a penny on the ground. I'm going to pick it up. Right? Because she said pennies make nickels, nickels make dimes, dimes make quarters, quarters make dollars. So
Yeah.
I celebrate the penny. And the reason I celebrate the penny is because the penny, if you get enough of them, it will equal $1. And it is the same thing when I'm coaching people and they say, oh, I only lost a pound, right? We got to honor the pound. We got to celebrate. We got to jump up. We got to twirl. We got to make flips over that pound, because to find the joy in that pound opens us up to the joy that happens when it's 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And that came from my grandmother and picking up pennies. That came from her.
Oh, Grandma, I'm never going to think of a penny the same. I love that. The penny is symbolic of the journey.
Yes.
The penny is symbolic of the baby step and savoring the entire process, right?
Yes.
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 Oh,
Absolutely.
so beautiful. Thank you, Grandma. And thank you, Michelle, for being here. This conversation was wonderfully beautiful.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you for holding space for it.
Hey again, it's me, Ryan. What an amazing conversation that was, as always. I'm so glad you hung around till the very end. If you are a supporter of the Raising Wild Hearts podcast, thank you so very much. If you're showing up week after week to listen to these amazing conversations, thank you so very much. If you've not become a supporter of the show, wherever you are listening, you can scroll down in the episode description and click on the link that says support the show. Doing this will not only help support the show and the recording of it and the editing and the publishing and everything that goes on behind the scenes, but it'll also get you access to subscriber-only episodes. Thank you so much for considering supporting the show with a small monthly contribution. I can tell you, as an independent creator, it really, really does make a difference. So thank you, thank you. And listen, I'm sure you already know this, but I gotta say it. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. The hosts and guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken by the listener based on the information provided. I know you know, but now you know. I can't wait to chat more with you in the next episode, but until then, go love someone well.